Welcome to the Fredonia Central School Board Education meeting for Tuesday, September 24, 2024. We start each meeting with the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, before we get to the consent agenda, we need a resolution to appoint Mr. Forbes to the next meeting. So, that's a motion.
Second.
Enthusiastic tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have a proposed agenda for tonight's meeting with a consent agenda, including personnel, excluding B5 and 6, but also including new business. Is there anything that anyone would like to be pulled out of consent tonight?
Yeah, we do have one situation I want to make you aware of, which we just were notified of recently. So if you go to B4, which is the probationary appointment, the position of cleaner, there have been some circumstances that have put that start date in question. So
you're talking personnel for B?
Correct. Correct. B4, personnel. Yep, I'm sorry. Yep. So what we would like to do is strike that from the agenda and bring that back at a time when we are sure of the start date and everybody's ready to begin. So, sorry for short notice, but this was on the fly.
Okay, so we're striking 6B4 personnel.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve consent agenda minus personnel 6B4.
Thank you, Mr. Aldridge. A second? Mr.
Second.
Marshall? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. So we move into our first public comment for tonight. The board has reserved the time to hear comments from the audience. Those wishing to address the board are asked to stand, give their name and address, and limit their comments to 5 minutes or less per individual. Concerns and comments during this session should be directly related to items listed on the proposed agenda for tonight. We do have a second opportunity later at the end of the meeting where if there's something not on the agenda, you can speak to the board. Is there anybody who would like to speak tonight regarding anything on the agenda? Okay, it's nice to see some students here, so welcome. All right, who's your teacher?
Mr. Newell.
Mr. Newell, okay. My neighbor, 2 doors down. Great, okay. Well, we'll move on then. So next we have the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting from September 10th. Could I have a motion to approve those meetings, or bring those minutes to the floor?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Hahn. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kinney. Any comments on the minutes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So now on to the financial treasurer's reports. So we've got 4 items. We start with the budget status report. So hand it over to you, Mr. Forbes.
We'll do A, B, and C kind of all together. So you have July information in front of you. Not a lot of activity on the revenue side in July. We only have about 23,000 total, which is typical for that time of year. Investments were already got $10,000 of potential revenue for interest off the T-bills were there. Good news is the rates were good in July. The bad news is they're slipping pretty good. And you'll see once we get a couple months down that we've gone from 5.2, 5.3 down to like 4.6, 4.5 so far. So that was a good way of earning extra interest income last year. So hopefully we can maintain that at least a little bit this year. Also, you got a copy of the dashboard. Not a whole lot going on there because it's only 1 month into the year. So you can't really get a lot of projection off of that, but we did include that for your information. And then finally, 11D is the treasury report, which is the bank reconciliations, and we need a board motion for that.
Yeah, so could I have a motion for the treasurer's report?
So moved.
Ms. Gullo, second?
Second.
Ms. Fortna, thank you. Mr. Forbes? Oh, nothing on the?
Nope.
Nothing,
All good?
okay. I had a few questions, so.
Too late.
Well, we haven't voted on it.
We haven't voted on it,
That's
so we're good. No, I was just reflecting back to the 23-24 budget, the expenditures and revenues. So just to clarify, you know, 34,100,000 for expenditures roughly, and 34,100,000 for revenues. So just to clarify, that means the million that we had, we didn't use much of that million, right? Or hardly any of it.
Basically, yes.
Okay. So we didn't have to dip into that, which is good news.
Now, this, just to point out, 23-24 is not final. You saw a copy of that last time, because the audit's not done yet. I don't anticipate any major changes to these numbers, but I would say it's not the final, and you will be approving the final once we get to that.
Okay. So
But
now
in the past, we kind of held everything
right.
until that happens, and there seemed to be a desire to have the July and August stuff a little quicker, so that's why we did July tonight.
Okay. So somebody help me out. Did I ask for a motion on that already? I have, okay. So
You have
all
a
those,
motion and a second.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we have to approve the corrected tax rolls for the 24-25 school tax levy. Could I have a motion to bring that to the floor?
So moved.
Ms. Hahn, and a second to Ms. Porter. Thank you.
It was Jerry.
Okay. Sorry. Maybe it moved you too apart. I'm not gonna get any better with this, so. Mr. Forbes.
Okay, so you got a couple different things going on here, and it's not unusual to get one or two corrected rolls during the course of the tax collection period. But in this case, we have three separate things going on. First is an assessment reduction with Fredonia Place. This is a legal process that goes through the town attorney, and they negotiate it to however they do all that, and it ended up being a reduction in their tax. The information wasn't locked in with the county until after our levy, so we couldn't address it there. So it's essentially a $55,000 shortfall to our levy this year. So one of the questions that I'll be dealing with the auditor tomorrow is whether we can use the tax reserve to keep our revenue whole, or whether we even need to, whether we can do it later if the year's not going well, or if it's going good, we don't have to. So that's still kind of in flux, but we are required to issue a corrected tax bill for that. We also have three instances where either the basic or enhanced star exemptions were not included on a tax bill, and also 5 situations where the senior exemption was not applied to the tax. All of those, the star and the senior, are based on a New York State formula. They produced the documents for the county, and I guess we're fortunate there was another district last year that had a lot of errors. So far, these are the only ones that we've seen on our side, and even on those, there's one on here that's listed as a reduction from $578 to $289, and we learned yesterday that that calculation wasn't correct, and it's actually a 0. So I need to amend that as kind of part of this package that you're asked to vote on tonight.
Okay. Any comments?
Is there any reason why we wouldn't want to use the tax security reserve?
I guess in my mind, it would be if we have a good revenue year, and again, we have the good interest income, we're exceeding what we're expecting, maybe we continue to hold that, and we've talked about on numerous occasions, perhaps looking at shifting some of that somewhere else. So rather than just say, oh yeah, we'll take it, I think I need to look at it and give you some options as to what might be the best way to go.
Okay. And we've talked about it in the past, and I didn't know if this would be a good time to allocate some and then move some around, but.
And as you may recall, when we had the tax situation earlier this year, in the county, that wasn't eligible for use with the reserve, so I want to make sure that this is eligible before we get to that. But I'll come back to that at some point in the near future.
John, are these errors made by the state, or are these, or I'm sorry, by the county, or are these the actual taxpayer? How did that work? What was the?
My understanding with all the ones, with the exception of the assessment reduction, where the calculation was not done correctly when the state entered the things they need to enter for the STAR program.
Okay, so this isn't the community making an error, this
It
is,
didn't sound like it, no.
okay.
And last question, what's the timing for people to kind of raise those concerns? They've got their tax bill, they're saying this doesn't look right to me.
Actually, from my understanding, you can raise it at any point that you want. Clearly, these people got their bill and called and said, what do we need to do? And I referred all of those to the town of Pomfret assessor's office, because these are all Pomfret taxes. we don't have the ability as a district to go in and change addresses, we don't have the ability to go in and change exemptions. We get our data through them, so the reference was back to them, and they all went, everyone here had talked to me.
But we could anticipate there could still be additional ones that come in?
Yes,
or-
because there's, actually got one today, so,
Okay.
And kind of-
similar thing as far as exemption.
And to Brian's point on the certiorari, like, the reason we keep that is because we've had this happen going back
Correct.
years.
Correct.
Someone will raise an issue that they paid taxes years ago and that those were wrong.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, also to Brian's point, it was brought up in the spring. What was that number that we have in there in the tax certiorari? It's pretty healthy, right? Like,
Yeah, I want to say 500,000 off the top of my head,
Yeah.
roughly.
And we did talk about possibly shifting some of that money in the future, so, yeah. 'cause it's
Yeah, there's a
pretty-
process, you'd have to make a motion to bring it back, and then depending on what we did with it, there's either, if there's a capital reserve, you would look at that, or there's different motions you'd have to make depending which way you go with it.
Right, okay. Any other questions on that at all? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. So the final item, John, is another award transportation contract. We had a number of them last meeting. This one is on the agenda for tonight. Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor?
So moved.
Mr. Marshall, a second.
Second.
Ms. Cullo, thank you. So the reasoning.
So this one had a couple different layers to it. One, we have a student who's attending North Collins BOCES, and part of that program allowed them to go to the Carrier Center for a VOTEC opportunity. And so all of our runs were set up to go to North Collins and Baker and Hamburg, and we had no way to get the student from Carrier here. The student, if they went back from Carrier to North Collins, it was too late to catch our bus, so we had to come up with another option. In the meantime, we had two other students for different reasons that also were going to Carrier Center in the afternoon, so we had to look at how we could do that. And I'll tell you, part of it's a bus driver shortage, and I don't know, part of it's the continued distribution of programs across the BOCES network, but it was extremely difficult to get the transportation. I talked to 3 contractors and 6 districts trying to pair up with somebody, and Western Northwest Company was the only one that was able to even come remotely close to being able to provide a service for it. So we're fortunate in that regard that they were willing to work with us on this, but each one of these becomes its own challenge if we have more and more off-site locations. So.
Any questions?
Is this a 5-day-a-week run?
You good? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thanks, John. So that brings us to personnel. Tonight we have 2 appointments. They both involve teachers that are presently working in the district, correct?
Correct.
Yep. The first is to a change of Marissa Butcher from a full-time long-term substitute to a probationary teaching position in the world languages tenure area. Could I have a motion to bring that to the table?
So moved.
Okay, Ms. Ty, Ms. Hahn, and Ms. Fortman. Second, okay. So Dr. Ziliaks.
Yeah, we're excited. One of the things we've talked about on a couple different occasions is that in moments, people actually getting their certification from New York State, verified, confirmed, can be a little more challenging depending on the variables in the situation. And both Marissa and Amanda, who we'll talk about momentarily, had their moments of getting through some paperwork, working with representatives from their college to make it all come together. So it's nice when it finally lands in a good place, certification's been confirmed, so that takes them to a probationary appointment, and the probationary period will begin at the date of their certification. So we're excited to have this kind of off the unresolved issues list, and we're looking forward to a good school year. Marissa's done a nice job in our world language department, and it's in a good place, so we're excited.
The rules have changed over the years on this, haven't they?
Yeah, there's been a couple things with the timing of the teacher testing that has caused a little bit of a delay compared to years past, so we're staying flexible and positive and making it work. Thanks to Dr. Wright for her behind-the-scenes work, contacting a variety of people to make sure everything will eventually get to where we are tonight, where we're in a good place.
Great. Any comments at all? Or, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So we're happy to now have Ms. Butcher on the tenure track in the World Languages Department. That's great.
Correct.
And the second appointment is very similar to the first. It's a change of status for Amanda Kent from a full-time, long-term substitute to again, a probationary middle school special education position in the special education tenure area. Can I have a motion to bring that to the table?
So moved.
Was that Ms. Cullen? Thank you. A second?
Second.
Mr. Marshall, thank you. Dr. Zoya?
Yeah, we're equally as happy to have Amanda on board in a probationary position. Again, she was patient and persistent in making sure that she did everything that she needed to do to have her paperwork into New York State, and then we were just waiting on that confirmation. So pretty much a very similar situation, a little bit different timing, but again, we're happy to have Amanda on board as a full-time probationary teacher. Again, her probationary period beginning at the date of certification.
Comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So we're also happy to have Ms. Kent on a tenure track for special education in the special education department. All right, so we're on to our second round of public comment. Instead of reading the entire spiel, anybody interested in speaking?
Sure, I'll just stand up. Hi, Braden Carmen with the Observer. I've covered all 3 football games so far this year, and I just kind of wanted to highlight how I think it's a great sign of progress to see not only a trainer at 2 of the 3 games, but to also have Dr. Shepard on the sideline for all 3 games. Last year I wrote a pretty extensive article about my belief that trainers are something that all athletic teams should have, and districts should be offering, and I think that it makes me feel a lot better to see as much progress has been made over the past year. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you, Brady.
Thank you very much. We're equally excited, so thanks. That brings us to the superintendent's report for tonight. I believe, Dr.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it moving, but I do have a number of things to get to. One of them is, and I know in my communications to the board, we've talked about this, but we haven't talked about it publicly. So as we, and I just want to remind everybody, we are still in the environmental study process of our proposed capital project. We'll let that process play out, but we are forecasting and anticipating that we will be moving forward at our next board meeting to resolution for the wording on the ballot of a vote that would take place on December 12th of this year to potentially approve what is now proposed Proposition 1, Proposition 2, and Proposition 3. As we are gearing up in anticipation of that, there are some windows of time where public notice needs to go out to the community, and also some time that if there are any environmental issues, giving our attorneys a chance to address those and create a plan for resolving whatever might come up. So what that means to our board schedule is if we continue with the meeting on October 22, that window would be very narrow. There'd be about 24 hours of time in between. That wouldn't give our attorneys much time. It also would mean that we would really have to coordinate with the Observer and or the Post-Journal to have things out. So if we back up our meeting just a few days to October 17th, which is a Thursday, a little unusual for putting out of a board meeting on a Thursday, but this would give us some leeway and really create some opportunity to address anything that might come up in between now and then, particularly with any of the environmental pieces. So I wanted to bring that forward for discussion, conversation. Many of you responded that that would work. I think some of you have some things that you were willing to work out to get us there for October 17th, but I want to make sure we were on the same page, and then also announce that tonight, and then we'll follow up with a lot of communication, so everybody's aware of that adjustment. So, concerns, are we okay to make that move? Any last minute reservations? Okay. So, you will see some communication regarding that. Again, the board meeting will shift from October 22 to October 17, from a Tuesday to a Thursday. Same time, 6 o'clock. Same as a typical board meeting that we have, although it could highlight a resolution that would approve the language for the ballot of the capital project. So that is the hope. Speaking of the capital project, especially with a project that potentially is fairly large, even if it were just to be Proposition 1 that passed, we'd be talking roughly about $20 million with work. If Proposition 2 also passes, we're up in the $30 million range, and if all three were to pass, we're in the $50 million range. So even with just Proposition 1, sizable amount of work. Most of the time with a project of this size, districts will employ a construction manager to help oversee all those moving pieces. This is also very common when you would have multiple contractors involved, and also projects that would be running simultaneously, and work would be happening in various places in the district at the same time. So when Young and Wright produced the estimates and the cost of a construction manager is built in to those figures. So this is, we're not talking about any additional money at this point. And we, in the past, have had a relationship with Buffalo Construction. We have Bill here who's going to speak momentarily, but we wanted to have a discussion about a contract manager in public session. Also considering Buffalo Construction in particular. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Forbes to just fill in a little bit more information before Bill shares some thoughts with us.
Yeah, just briefly, we used Buffalo Construction on our last building project, had a great working relationship between our maintenance staff and our administration when they were on site. As Dr. Zalak mentioned, you can do these a couple different ways. You could do a clerk of the works, which typically is a smaller project because it's singular items you're working on, or in a larger project, you want to have somebody who's got experience at all different levels of what we may or may not be doing. Asked Bill Mahoney to come down tonight, just talk a little bit about their services, and I would highly recommend moving forward with them if the board so chooses. Very happy.
Great. Thank you, John. Thank you, Dr. Ziliaks, and Board of Education, of course, for a few minutes of your time. My name's Bill Mahoney. I'm one of the owners of Buffalo Construction. I grew up in the South Towns, North Collins area. Graduated from SUNY Fredonia. So, you know, Fredonia is kind of near and dear to my heart. It's some of the best years of my life right down the street. College life, so we'll kind of leave that for another story. But no, it was great. And as John said, we worked with you guys back in 2017-18 on your last capital project. And if we were fortunate enough to be able to work with you again, you know, that would be something that would obviously resonate with us. Us as a firm, Buffalo Construction, we have about 80 professionals, superintendents, project managers, administrative staff. We're currently working in 15 different school districts. So we're working with Silver Creek, the neighbors down this way, North Collins, North Tonawanda, Cheektowaga, Lancaster. You know, we have a whole list of projects. All into total is about $500 million worth of work between them all. And we've been working with a number of those districts, similar to Fredonia, for the last 7 years. So we do a lot of repeat business with North Collins, Lancaster Schools, Cheektowaga, Depew, Maryville, so a number of them. And what we'll do, we've been working a bit with John and Dr. Ziliaks over the last few months with Young and Wright. Young and Wright's on 7 of those projects, so we have a very good, strong working relationship with them. They do a great job, as they will do here, and we work with them from estimating constructability and really how we're going to build the job as a whole. So when we talk about, you know, a primary function of a school, it isn't what we do, right? That's what you all do. You're the educators. Our job is to make sure you can continue to educate while we're improving the bricks and mortar of your building, right? How are we gonna phase that work? If you have $20+ million in your first proposition, how is that gonna go in, right? It's not gonna all be in one area of the building. There's new mechanical systems, new electrical systems throughout all those buildings. And we'll work with each of the principals, we'll work with all the different users of the building to ensure that from a constructability standpoint, we can build it the most cost-effective and efficient way. So you're buying more bricks and mortar, you're not buying time and schedule from the contractors. And then we'll ultimately oversee, in this particular project, there'll probably be about a dozen prime contracts versus many districts or a lot of the clerks will use a 4 prime type approach where we take the general contractor and we break that out. So those savings that the general contractor would receive as additional profits really gets utilized again for you guys by more bricks and mortar from the specific trades. And our project team, project managers, superintendents will actually coordinate that work, working with the staff here locally to ensure that, you know, things are on time, on budget. We'll manage the change process. Inevitably, there will be changes, right? So as a board, prepare you now, you know, but we do our best to really get in early. So after the vote approves the project, we'll work with Young and Wright to start popping the ceiling tile and looking above the ceiling, looking behind the walls to see what's going on when we talk about putting a new air conditioning maybe in the library. All right, what's that really going to take to do? We don't want any surprises. So we'll work on that with the architects and review constructability, bid the project, and then when we go to construction, we'll make sure what you bought is what you receive. Right, very important aspect, although it seems very trivial, it's a very, very important part of what we do and deliver the quality project, turn it over to you all so you can benefit from it and move on to the next district. So I'd open up any questions or thoughts or conversations, but as John said, we had a great experience back in 17, and you know, we'd be honored if we had an opportunity to do that again with you all.
So now you are a general contractor. You will not only manage the individual contractors, but you will review their bills.
Yeah, so we're a construction manager, so there's a bit of a difference, right? And some of it's just, you know, kind of the terminology of the industry, right? So as a municipality or a school district, WIC's law requires you to have 4 primes at a minimum to bid the job. So a lot of districts do that with a mechanical, an electrical, a plumber, and then a general contractor. And that general will have the drywall, the paint, right, everything within it. Where ultimately, instead of that, we'll take and we'll break that contract relationship down much further. So we'll have 10, 12, maybe 14, depending on the scope of work. We'll have our own site contractor. We'll have our own drywall contractor, probably our own painter, our own floor. So we're taking that and breaking that apart. And then as part of our due diligence monthly, we'll review every one of their pay applications from the beginning, make sure that it's compliant with their contract, and then we'll, you know, report back out to the board monthly, you know, who should be paid what for the work put in place. So we'll review those pay applications, we'll make sure that they're in line, make sure you're not prepaying, right, for things that you shouldn't be. There's no such thing, right? You pay after the work's complete, and that's part of what we will do on a monthly basis.
Okay.
Did that answer?
Yeah,
Brian?
it's really the payment, just reviewing that payment, making sure that it's what we're expecting.
Yeah, that's
by contract and.
That's a big part of what we
by
do.
state contract.
Yeah, absolutely.
State requirements.
So we'll not only review the contractor's pay applications, we'll work with Young and Wright and John on all the SED forms to get your aid coming back, right? When the project's closed out, right? That June, December, very, very important date. You miss those, your aid doesn't start to flow. And we'll make sure that as a whole, that you're maximizing your state aid for each of your individual buildings and classroom, you know, calculations. And that's a bit of, you know, again, what we look to do as a complete solution, so you guys can maximize every available dollar from the state. Very, very important piece of that. And by breaking those contracts out, it gives us much better opportunities to do that.
Superintendent report?
I do, are we good with Bill?
You
Thank you.
did a great
Thank
job
you.
explaining it, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we got hung up in listening and kind of thinking about some of that. The other thing I want to make the board aware of is that we did communicate with our students regarding the board student representative, non-voting member of the Board of Education. Applications are open this week. to early next week, and then we'll move on to our next phase of the process. But we're excited and hopefully have a number of applicants. As I look back last year, we had 8 applicants, and ended up selecting one. So I'm hoping that we're in that ballpark again, or perhaps even more students might seek this opportunity. So that's in the works, and I will keep you updated on our progress there. There was also a question that came up about our enrollment, and part of what some people were kind of surmising when we were into the capital project conversations was, well, where is our enrollment? And I think there's an assumption, because a lot of districts in New York State, their enrollment is declining. But just to take a look, at least a year ago, and this includes pre-K, which the state doesn't typically do, but I think that gives us an accurate number. A year ago, we were 1,475 students. At the end of the year, we were slightly less, 1,468. And as of today, we are 1,493 students. So although it's not a huge number, we are actually up from a year ago and up from the end of last school year, 20, 30 students or so. And also remember that we did some projections as part of the capital project. And those projections show that we should stay relatively stable. And I think that was out until 2030. So this looks good for the district. People are worried about this idea that our enrollment is decreasing each year and we have less and less students. That was true earlier in the 2000s. It's sort of stabilized, and maybe we're even increasing a little bit, but we should be right in this ballpark as we move forward. So I just wanted to make you aware of that and follow up on that question. There is also conversation happening out there in New York State regarding graduation pathways. And the state has, and I'll go to, been working on this as part of what they're calling the Blue Ribbon Commission on Graduation Measures. Mrs. Hahn, Mr. Johnston, and myself attended a dinner recently with Chautauqua County School Boards, Mr. Aldridge also, my bad, in which we heard a little bit more about this. The opportunity right now for the board, and really anybody else, if you are interested, any of our administrators, I will send out this link to this page. And one thing you can click on is this first link that takes you to the report, which takes you through a 47-page document that really breaks down in great detail a lot of the information that they're proposing. And probably the two things that catch a lot of people's attention are kind of the tagline is multiple pathways leading to one high school diploma. And there's some challenges in that, and this is all at the proposal level currently. So going to a more simplified one diploma, and there's some pros and cons of that. And also thinking a little bit about what does a graduate look like in New York State. And the components that they're framing this around currently are that they would like graduates to be critical thinkers, culturally competent, effective communicators, global citizens, innovative problem solvers, literate across content areas, and socially emotional competence. So they're definitely taking a broader look at the skills that we're hoping to see in students, much like we are. That does connect in a lot of ways to the work we've been doing with the 7 Habits and potentially the Leader in Me. And at this point, they're looking for feedback. So if we go back to that same page, and again, I'll send the link out. The third link down is thought exchange. Now, when the 4 of us were at this dinner, there was an opportunity to do this, but it was a little rushed, right? So if you click on thought exchange, it will take you to participate in discussion via thought exchange. And the deadline to respond is October 6th. And there are a few prompts that they're basically asking, kind of in these 4 transitional modes. One of them is going to one diploma. Another is some flexibility in how students are demonstrating competence or that they have learned. Also, again, that idea of the portrait of the graduate, and also thinking about cultural responsive curriculum instruction and assessment. So if you take a look at that document, again, you probably don't need to look at all 47 pages, but it does break it down with some summary. And if you'd like to share your thoughts with New York State, you're more than welcome to do that. One of the things that is interesting about thought exchange is you'll see other people's comments in there, and you can either indicate that you agree with that comment, or you can comment on their comment. So sort of a little bit more of a free-flowing dialogue online rather than just you inputting your thoughts. But I'll get this link out there if anybody's interested. They're asking for feedback, and I'm hoping that that does impact the decisions that they ultimately make around this. The other thing that's going on at the state level, but it's also trickling down to us, is this idea of regionalization. And really, this comes down to this idea of trying to create ways in districts can collaborate, can work together, can share services, to really maximize what all districts are offering their students. Some people are interpreting this as, they're encouraging districts to merge. And at least in the documentation that's provided on this, the state will tell you that is not the case. We're talking about collaboration, we're talking about pooling resources, we're talking about working together as individual districts. So this is a conversation that's out there. Mr. Johnston and I have been invited to a dinner on Wednesday, October 30, at the Levita Center for board presidents and superintendents to really dig deeper into this concept, what that might mean across the state, what that might look like locally. And I wanted to make you aware of this discussion, and also that we'll be following up after that meeting with an update. And this will be an ongoing dialogue throughout the school year. The state has charged each district superintendent, and I think you know ours is David O'Rourke, who's a very intelligent district superintendent, does a nice job, not only being up to date on what's happening, but also does a nice job facilitating open dialogue and conversations, hopefully to get to some type of consensus around what we might be able to do. So he'll be leading this, and we definitely have confidence that he will do a nice job, and we're going to explore how we can work together. So, any questions about either one of those two, the graduation measures or the regionalization?
As far as the regionalization, to other board members, there will be a Sept County School Board Association meeting at Jerome State. Was that October 9th?
Yep.
October 9th. So it's in our backyard. It will be Dr. O'Rourke discussing regionalization is that topic. So if anyone is interested in that, get a nice meal, get up to date on that.
Yeah, I will follow up with that date. I missed that, so thank you. And that's all I have tonight.
Any other questions, comments? Report? Yeah, I just want to highlight, it's positive news about the enrollment. Actually having increases, not very common in this day and age, so that's nice to see. In 2 weeks' time, our next board meeting will be held here in the high school library, Tuesday, October 8th at 6 p.m. So before we conclude, any board comments? I actually asked, Ms. Hahn and Mr. Aldrich attended that meeting that Dr. Ziliak mentioned, and on the portrait of graduate, I asked Mr. Aldrich his comments on it. Dr. Ziliak gave quite a few comments. Any other comments that you had that you didn't touch on from that meeting at all?
Well, I just find it interesting. I think that we all have our opinions of different things, and I just ask that board members at least look at this and give their comments if they want. I think that what my personal opinion is the state is looking to make the graduation more subjective, which at least that's the way I'm feeling on this. Rather than by grade and passing grade, it's if a teacher believes that they become a good communicator, even though they may not show it on a test, but they are doing different things, whether it's an article or a newspaper, or something else, that they would pass the application of it. So it's, I was hoping to have something from them that I could read, because we were really pressed that night for a lot of information. It's interesting. And then the diplomas, they talked about the possibility of putting a seal on the diploma for the region's achievement, or possibly a music achievement like we have in Tri-M, or the arts program. We would have a seal for each of those. It would be in addition to the basic high school diploma.
You can have that. There you go.
Well, let me read this and I'll get back to you
I'll come back.
in 5 minutes, okay?
We've already had some good conversations at the gym, because we attend the same gym, and my 1/7 is, I think it's time for a change from the old model, but we both agree, like, subjective. How are you going to measure portrait of graduate, like global citizen, for example? How do you read? So I guess that remains to be seen how they're going to measure those metrics. But thanks, Mr. Aldrich, Ms. Hahn, for donating your time. And it's one of our board goals is to attend more meetings, the Chicago County meetings, the BOCES meetings, and NISPA events. So that's one of our, and you got us off to a great start, so thank both of you. Yeah. Any other comments, general comments from the board tonight? Moving to principals? All right. Well, Ms. Wright, we'll start with you.
Oh,
Sorry.
surprising with that
Caught you
one.
really fast, yeah, it came right up.
No, that's good. No, we had our first curriculum council meeting of the official school year, and it's always great to get everybody, together, representing. In Fredonia, we have a structure that represents all areas, pre-K through 12th grade, and to have all those teacher leaders assemble in one place and discuss, our common framework, goal, what we're setting out to do this year, celebrating what we've been achieving and working toward, seeing so many familiar faces, as well as new people who choose to come on as instructional leaders. So it was just a really good time to come together and, look ahead to the work that we're doing, and looking to see how it all ties with the mission, vision, core beliefs, the district planning team that worked so hard last year to kind of have that framework that we shared at opening day. I know we've shared here with the board meeting to look at some of those 3 goals and really focus in on continuing the work we've been doing, and really intentionally working with literacy, including our elementary literacy pilot. And then we also talked about intervention, starting to explore academic and behavioral interventions, interwoven with social emotional learning, and making sure that we're really looking and dovetailing all of that together, so that's all going toward those district planning goals. Some of we always take that time to look at some of the new mandates by the state, and to look to see where things are going curricularly. And these are the instructional leaders who attend the forums held by BOCES in the different disciplines. Now, our instructional leader structure is much broader than the forums offered at BOCES. There isn't necessarily one for every academic area, but there are for many. So certainly, the core 4 But it's nice because then they get to go have updates also and be instructed and have some PD directly by BOCES on these things and bring them back to the school, to their respective people. So I attend the Regional Curriculum Council, which is very, very broad. They get to go at a more granular level specific to their area and bring it back directly to their teaching teams and to the building and department level. So it's important. So I thank the administrators for being there. And it's great when we're all pulling and rowing together to make everything go forward. So it was a great kickoff meeting.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Pash.
Last week we celebrated Start with Hello Week in the high school. Just as the seniors, the first day of school, have the tradition of chalking the walk and welcoming the students in. Our teachers did that for our first day of the week, and fortunately it rained last night for the first time, but we got to celebrate for more than a week with all the great chalk that was out there. And then just real kudos to our staff, and particularly the Student Support Services Office, that had activities for the kids all week centered around inclusion and the importance of having voice and choice with all of our kids. So it was fantastic. Upcoming next week, we've got Spirit Week leading up to our homecoming game on October 4th. So of course you're all invited to the parade. We'll be lining up in front of Village Hall around 6:15, 6:20, trying to get a 6:25, 6:30 push off for the parade down to the football field. Hoping to have police and fire support along with us to have the lights and the sirens and all the fun things and keep us safe as we walk down Route 20 to the field. Obviously, the homecoming game itself, you're invited to that. And then we have our homecoming bonfire right after the game. Our very own Mr. Newell will be cooking hot dogs, and we'll be handing out hot dogs and water for free for the kids. And we have a DJ set up and lots of fire, so it'll be fun. Just lastly, I wanted to mention, and I'm not going to give a name yet because I don't know if the student knows. This was just released because it was embargoed, but you may know of the National Merit Award that is given for the PSAT exam scores, and it's been a long time. I don't remember the last time we've had someone become a semifinalist for this. It's less than 1% of all the students in the country who take the PSAT. We have one student who qualified, and looking through, they give me a booklet of all the names from across the country, and I was focusing on New York, and specifically in our county. I don't think there's anyone else in the county that was even selected for this. So it's quite an honor. I reached out to the parent today, and I didn't get a hold of them, and the voicemail was full. So, but so I don't want to give a name, but just at the next board meeting, I'll be able to share that. And it's just an exciting honor for Fredonia and this particular student.
Great, fantastic. Are we into the third week now?
The 5-week mark is Friday next week, and so it's the first Saturday. So this is the end of the 4th week coming up here, and yeah, 5th week grades close next week on Friday.
It's always nice to get into this spot. You settled in.
Yeah, it's like we're there.
Which is great.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Paulinas?
Yes, so I want to echo the same sentiments around Start with Hello Week. Our students were greeted on Monday morning with lots of staff and cowbells and all sorts of fun noises. We wore green together on Wednesday. There was a scavenger hunt opportunity in the cafeteria, a photo booth where students could take photos with a new friend, and some opportunities for staff to come in and have lunch with the kids in the cafeteria too. So similar, our counseling team did a great job putting that together, publicizing it, getting it out to our building as well as our families. And speaking of the enrollment piece, our building alone has had over 40 new kids join us between the summer and the first few weeks of school. So a huge kudos to our students really and our staff just for welcoming all of these new kids, embracing them in their classes, getting them navigating around the building to and from specials, helping them with their lockers, all sorts of things. The kids have been great in really embracing all of them, and the teachers too, just helping to get them acclimated to our expectations and what our middle school is all about. So yes, it's been exciting to just see so many faces. I'm usually pretty good with faces and names. I'm walking around now like, oh my gosh. Yeah, so it's exciting. It's a good thing. And just lastly, on Thursday would be Paula's birthday. So we are hoping to wear, our staff will be in all the buildings, will be wearing either Love More attire or orange and black. We'll put that out for our students to participate in that as well if they want to, at least at the middle school. And one of our teachers took a leadership role to provide an opportunity for some donations, thanks to Lisa Forbes for spearheading that work. Some different items we're building depending on the need, but, so that will be Thursday. You're welcome to join.
And you said we're up 40 students?
What's that?
You said we're up 40 students in the middle school? That's fantastic.
Yep. And that's just over the summer and the first couple of weeks of school.
That's great.
Yeah.
Mr. Jones, you're elementary.
Yeah, the elementary thing is going great. I was actually at a training last Friday with Ms. Paul Hamus, and we were trained in safety care. And it's like a de-escalation strategies for teachers, aides, and administrators. And it's just nice to have the opportunity to go back and hone our skills when we're with kids. There's another training that's going to be next week, Monday, where we train about 10 more teachers and aides, and that's a good opportunity for continued growth. The state has released its test scores in the 3 through 8 testing. And Jamie and I actually were on a video call today with a representative from BOCES. We're kind of taking an initial look at that data, and then we're going to share it with our teachers next week and kind of just learn from it and kind of look at we're going to drill down and look at the standards and see how we did with particular little growth measures and see how we compare to the region and things like that. And then, a big shout out to our counseling staff as well. They just wrapped up our Big Buddy program, which partners, new kids to the district with kids who have been here for a while to do the things that Jamie was talking about at the middle school, just make them feel more welcome and part of the community. So that's all that I have for you guys.
Great, thank you. Ms. Farrell.
Hi. So there's a picture up there. I just want you guys to look at that. Those are some of our special ed students doing some cool things for the start of the school year. So every once in a while, in anticipation of a board meeting, I will send an email out to my department and say, tell me some things that are going on so I can share that with you. And a couple of teachers took the time to send me some pictures, so I did want to be able to share those. So just to highlight what's going on, one class in our middle school talked about, and that picture is actually not up there, but they performed a play called Gold Gone in class. It was about a princess that finds gold at the end of a rainbow. And the teacher reported the students really loved building the props, and everyone was excited to read and participate. In one of our elementary self-contained, our 811, the students made bubble wands and bubbles, and they learned about taking deep breaths when they feel frustrated, and they learned about what's called the power of yet, and having a growth mindset. So you can see in the picture, I can't do it yet, but they're going to anticipate being able to learn a lot of great new things. And in another one of our classrooms at the elementary self-contained, Mrs. Gambino, her class has been learning all about fall, and students wrote some things about their favorite fall activities. They studied the life cycle of an oak tree, and they made acorn donuts, which I didn't get a chance to taste, but she says they were delicious. So I wanted to share that with you. At the high school, our instructional leader, Mrs. Kelly, reported that our high school 15-1 classrooms have been just an incredible addition to our instructional offerings for special ed students. She says we're continuing to see increased student engagement, positivity, and camaraderie among students within the class, and there's a lot of collaboration in content area for the 15-1 teachers and other teachers who are teaching ELA, math, science, and social studies, bringing our related service providers in to make the most of the time together, and really being very successful in transitioning some of our students to the high school and helping them find success. So, the importance of that is that we've built some new programming, and, we need to really think hard about how to sustain that, because those needs will continue. Another great bit of news for the high school is that just this week we received a press release from Special Olympics of New York, and I hate to read, but I'm going to read to you. So Special Olympics New York has announced that 13 New York schools have been named new National Banner Unified Champion Schools. So that distinction marks the highest level of achievement for unified champion schools in the nation, recognizing leadership and in creative, inclusive school communities where all students are accepted and celebrated. So congratulations to Fredonia High School. We are now it's a lot of words, unified banner school. And that really speaks very highly to Mrs. Tomaszewski, all the students that have been involved in Unified Sports, Unified Club, which is wildly popular. So there's some good things going on. So Special Olympics Unified Champion Schools have students with and without disabilities playing on the same sports teams, taking phys ed courses together, learning inclusive leadership skills, leading campaigns with the entire school community. So we're really doing a good job with that. And the president of the New York Special Olympics indicates that the Banner schools are some of the best and brightest havens for inclusion, not just in our state, but throughout our country. So it's a really big honor for us. And we will receive an actual banner at some point. We'll have a special event to highlight that banner and really unveil it and promote that over more broadly in our community. So.
Right. I'll tell you, you never can go wrong showing us photos.
Well, I'll keep them coming, but yeah, I really felt like I'm glad Mrs. Heinz Morrison put that little collage together, because I was like, well, teachers took the time to share those photos, and I wanted you guys to see them. So.
I think I see the acorn donuts.
Yes, I see me too.
Yeah, I mean, in all the hustle and bustle of our role here, it reminds us why we do this, so thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you. Ms. Piper, you picked a very good jersey to wear tonight.
Right? I know, like that.
There you
I'll
go.
do that.
Great game last night.
Yeah,
Yeah, how's element, or, you like going?
So we're in the, we like to say, herding cat stage of RELAC. So learning the procedures and learning the routines, and it's a lot of fun. I have to put a couple shout outs. Our pre-K teachers this year have decided to have meals with the students. So they're eating lunch in the cafeteria with the students to help meet the New York State standards of learning manners and using utensils and passing plates and whatnot. And it was a huge leap for them to have that time with the students, but it's huge. It's just been such a remarkable, you can see already the relationships that are being built, the connections with the kids. So kudos to the cafeteria staff for working with us and allowing that to happen, but big shout out to them for giving the time to do that. I also want to put a shout out to Naomi Pierce and her crew, and Heidi Bates and her crew. Special ed at kindergarten level looks a little different than anywhere else, and they are shoes on the ground, and they are really making a difference for kids. These are some tough kids, and they're working with families, and they're really addressing needs that are pretty major, but they're doing it at a young age, and they're doing it with class and style. So just have to shout them out. And last but not least, thank you again for Cassie Farrell at RELAC, because she is a difference maker. Having a social worker there 4 days a week, we are making phone calls to parents daily. We're seeing things happen, change happen that last year we didn't see probably till Mayor doing it at all. So thanks again to the board for allowing that to happen.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, those UPK teachers, wow. I mean,
Right.
I mean, they don't get much time off. Lunch is probably their only break, one of the few
Yeah.
breaks. So
Right.
they donate their time to do that for manners.
Right.
Fantastic. Thank you. Great job, Mr. Forbes, tonight as clerk.
I'm good,
Yeah.
on two fronts, as me and as the clerk.
Good. You're quick and easy, okay. And so that kind of wraps up our meeting for tonight. Mr. Mahoney, thank you for coming tonight and sharing that with us. It sounds, it illustrates to me we're moving along here. We're making some progress. So tonight we're not going to close out the meeting. We anticipate the need to enter into executive session to discuss matters pertaining to personnel. So could I have a motion to go into executive? Ms. Walders, second Ms. Hahn, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Students, anyone can sign your form up here.